index is at its highest level since 2011.
Inaweza kuwa ni transport imechangia kwa sababu upande wa mafuta.
And I'm expecting to stay a few more hours just to get a feel.
Just in the country.
Uenda kwa mesa kuweka ukawe sukari ama majani ama ulipe. Hakuna pesa.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Infinipod. I'm your host with the most, Mr. Dennis Saka. Before we get into this, I have 3 disclaimers. 1, I am not an economist, and what I'm about to present is largely my opinion backed with some facts. 2, happy to continue this discussion in the comment section, whether you agree with me or not. And number 3, not a politician, so no politics here. Let's get into it. The big I am sure we've all heard this word, inflation.
The cost of everything that we buy is going up at the fastest rate for 30 years.
Year-on-year inflation continued on an upward trajectory.
Brand new inflation numbers just in.
What is inflation? According to Google, inflation is the rate of increase of price over a given time. That's clear enough. What do economists mean when they say inflation is at 5%? Let's bring this home. If a pack of unga was 100 bob in 2021, the same pack of unga will be 105 bob in 2022. From this description, you might be confused to think that inflation is a bad thing. It isn't. Small amounts of inflation actually help drive economic growth. In Kenya, the target range for inflation is between 2 to 7%.
Kenyan households will have to dig deeper into their pockets in a bid to afford basic commodities as the year-on-year inflation continued on an upward trajectory.
Yes, you read that right. The inflation rate in June was at an all-time high of 7.9%. That's a whole percentage point above the limit. How did this start? The year is 2020 and Kenya has already started to record its first COVID-19 cases and rising.
We only have 1 case and
this has now shot to 15,000.
Nearly 2 million people have lost their jobs.
I'd like to call your attention to this graph that shows how inflation has been tracking from January 2020 to May 2022. As COVID cases soared, the government introduced restrictions.
The sale of alcohol in restaurants and eateries in the 5 counties is prohibited. Primary and secondary day schools are to suspend operations from tomorrow.
They also introduced the COVID-19 burden relief. Value-added tax was reduced to 14% from 16%. We also saw a pay-as-you-earn tax reduction of 5%, while low-income earners got a 100% payee tax relief. Let's go back to the graph. Between March and September, you'll notice that inflation was at a decline. My hypothesis? People were losing jobs and companies were downsizing as a result of COVID. This meant that demand for goods and services was at an all-time low. Simple economics will then dictate that low demand will reduce the rate of price increase. The economy stabilized in September while inflation was at an all-time low of 4.2%. Remember the tax reprieve? This translated into cash into many of Kenyans' pockets. More cash equals more disposable income. More disposable income leads to more spending. More spending leads to increased demand. Increased demand leads to increased prices. And this is what happened between September 2020 and September 2021. You want proof? EABL, East Africa's largest brewery, increased their sales by 27% in Kenya. We had more money and so we spent it. You want more proof? This article on the Business Daily reads, the Central Bank of Kenya data released showed the number of high-quality accounts increased to 1.69 million in the year ending 2020, an 8.7% growth. It was expected that layoffs, job cuts, and closure of small businesses due to COVID would reduce the number. It didn't. So Kenyans had more money during COVID, we were spending more money, and the prices were definitely increasing. Then 2022 happened. Russia attacked Ukraine.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Світових лідерів задіяти всі можливі санкції проти Путіна.
Russia is one of the world's largest oil producer. But how much exactly do they produce? Reports that we found indicate that Russia produces about 11% of the oil in the world.
We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen.
We will weaken Russia's economic base.
That means every asset they have in America will be frozen.
With the sanctions leveled against Russia by the EU and America, a shortage has been created. The law of demand and supply states that if demand is high and supply is low, then prices will shoot. No wonder oil prices are so high. Also, I'd like to call your attention to this article that details how much we buy or trade with Ukraine. In 2021, we bought food in the form of cereals, vegetables, and cooking oils amounting to $90 million. That is a cool 10 billion Kenya shillings, going by current rates. Remember the high food cost as a result of the COVID-19 burden relief? This shortage in supply has served to exacerbate the situation. Now transport is expensive because of high oil prices, and food is expensive because of the shortage in supply, and this is why we are currently here where we are. This is how foreign politics can affect us all the way in Kenya. That has been my time, and I hope you have learned a thing or two.